is the Society Equestrian Officer, Dame Arabella da Sienna. Plus, third time's a charm, our live performance, me, Master Beorn of the Northern Sea, performing double duty, which makes me 6 times the announcer. And please, let's not forget our most wonderful and svelte host, Master Laertes McBride.
Hey everyone, good evening. Svelte. Yes, I feel very svelte tonight. And I think normally Beorn's at least 6 times the person that's usually standing next to him pretty much all the time. So I hope y'all are doing well this week before Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us. I'll get a couple of things out of the way for the viewers in Caid. I hope y'all had an opportunity to join in on the Royal Court that was held this past Saturday. If not, it is available on the Kingdom of Caid Facebook group page. It's not that long. It's only like 25 minutes long. I think that's a record we should try to keep when we have real courts. Yeah. Let's see. A couple of little things before we bring Beorn in. One is I want to remind everyone to bring, if you can, for our Yule special we're going to be having next month, we'd like to hear from you, the viewers. I know it's been a very challenging year, but I'm sure there are things that you have found to be thankful of. So we're looking for each of you just to do a quick 10 to 15 second video saying, this year I'm thankful for, and just say what it is. You can send it to me either as a file at livefromcaid@gmail.com, or on Facebook, you can send a PM to us and we can get it that way. Or if you need another way, just let me know. But I'd love to hear from everyone and to share what you did appreciate about this year. Secondly, as I said, we are going to have a Yule special towards the end of July. Where'd that come from? For the end of December. So be sure to check it out. We'll have more details on that as we get closer. And then just a little thing. As I've been talking about a couple of shows, there's something coming up that I had the opportunity to appear on. So what that is a week from this coming Wednesday, so December 2nd, I was fortunate enough to be able to appear on Wheel of Fortune. That's right, I'll be on Wheel of Fortune on the 2nd of December. We'll have kind of a viewing party on my personal Facebook page. And I have another little show that I do with a friend of mine, James and Greg Show. And we're going to talk about what it was like to get cast, the auditioning experience, what it was like to be on the show. So if you've ever been curious about what it's like to be on Wheel of Fortune, we'll have a link to that next Monday when we put it on my other channel. So be sure to check that out. It was an amazing experience. So yeah, so be sure to watch and cheer me on, even though it happened several months ago. So let's go ahead and bring Beorn in, see how he's doing. He'll be here right now. Hey, Beorn.
How are you doing?
I'm good. You know, getting ready for Thanksgiving with all the family coming. Oh, wait, nope. With just the people in my household coming over. So
I understand. Yes.
And you? Are you going to be cooking?
Well, cooking, baking, roasting, the usual things, and probably making food too. Today was the drop for those people that we have so many people actually in Caid who do work for Blizzard Entertainment. Today was the start of their new expansion on Shadowlands, and I confess that my lady and I did dive directly into the initial storyline and just a little bit, get our toes wet before I had to, like, you know, wear more presentable period clothing and be here. So this is how much I love this show. I rip myself away from games to be here and spend time with folks.
So I got to ask, what kind of desserts are you going to bake for?
I don't do as many desserts as I used to on account of gastric surgeries and whatnot. But the one thing that is most imperative to me is I make a mincemeat pie from scratch. It was the thing that my father and I liked a lot. It's something where you can literally drench everything in dark rum and everyone thinks it's great. And since there are people that are very particular mincemeat people and not mincemeat people, And sometimes that's a 50-50 thing.
Right.
That just means more for me. So that's my main one this holiday season.
So there's no meat in mincemeat. So
There
why?
is.
Oh, it
There
is? Oh, there is? Okay, well, shows you what I know. So
there is some meat, but mostly lard and suet. So those
yeah,
are the things that kind of create that substance within the mince filling itself. And then of course there are other things also: apples, spices, nuts, uh, uh, like chopped figs, those kinds of things. So yeah, it is as medieval as you would think it'd be, with cinnamon and cloves and those sorts of things that we have often for feast, that flavor meats happen in mincemeat pie all the time, and that's usually the time that mundane folks get a taste of what we have maybe every third or fourth feast.
okay. Well, that kind of is a good transition. We're going to next. What do you have up for us this week for Arts and Science website?
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because this is about food. This is all going to be about food today. And in particular, I wanted to talk first about something that is coming up on December 5th. Now, we have something that, how to put this? There are seminal shows on television today, on Netflix and the like, that just really grab a hold of people's attention, and people binge those. And one of those has been, for many people, not just foodies, but for everyone, the Great British Bake Off. And one of our cousin kingdoms has taken that concept and has really run with it. And that is the Kingdom of Adenvelt's The Great Medieval Baking Show. And that's going to be happening on December 5th. And it's going to be 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific, or 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Their time. And it kind of fluctuates. They say both on the website. I'd say show up at 1 just in case. And it is going to be a fantastic afternoon about food and all kinds of great things. They're going to have the first part of the day is the cutest subtlety, most beautiful pie or cake, the best holiday subtlety. They're going to have the most period looking things. I have been in contact with their social media coordinator in the Kingdom of Adenvelt, and they do want to remind you that if you would like to submit something for the competition, make sure that you take a picture of the item itself, and that you put not only the name of the item, but also who you are and where you're from. Because they've actually had, in times past, people have just dropped things off when we could still meet in public, in person. You remember those days? And they would just drop off a subtlety or drop off a mince pie and kind of leave. And they'd give this beautiful list about what was in it, how it was prepared, whether it was like a hot water crust or the like, but they wouldn't leave a name to who actually prepared it. So please, if you wish to participate in the Great Medieval Baking Show, that you let people know so they can enjoy and celebrate in what you do. Now, there will be prizes awarded for each category, and posting the images of your entry and indicating which one of the categories you would like to enter, in addition to who you are and where you're from, like I just said, have to be put in by December 2nd. Now, the second thing they're going to have taking recipes, and they're going to tell about processes, how they worked, what went right, what went wrong, how things taste, and things that you might do differently, things that you might would do again. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's also going to be categories for grown-ups and also youth. So that's going to be fun. In addition, they are going to have a third and final part of the day, which is basically just talking about food, talking about feasts. What things do you like in SCA cooking, and what do you want to do when we're finally able to meet together again? But many people in Caid are going to be going to this because it is virtually right here, and from a geographical standpoint, it's just next door. And I would very much want to thank again the Kingdom of Adenvelt and their social media coordinator for talking me through this process, so we could let folks know how best to submit things if they wished to do so. So once again, thanks for them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of those wonderful submissions that are going to be taking place on the 5th of December. And the second thing I wanted to talk about is, we have mentioned the Getty Museum before. We're very fortunate here in Southern California that we have the Getty Museum and the Getty Villa here, and all of the wonderful art that they have and they're able to display. And heck, when you think about it, all of the art that they have put away for restoration purposes or just for security purposes until it can be cycled through. In particular, right now, they have on their blog, which is blogs at Getty EDU, what did ancient Romans eat? Now, this is where their Roman cuisine enthusiasts and people that work also at the villa, and they talk to people about what are some basics of a Roman meal for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. Do they have those exact meals? Breaking your fast is something that we've done as long as we've been people. When you get up in the morning, you can eat something. But what would they have? How did they bake their bread? They have some areas on this blog where you get a chance to look at ways to spice wine, a way to make rice pudding. There is even, as I recall, a way to make dormouse. Not entirely certain how filling that's going to be, or if I'm honest, how ethical that would be. But, it's something to look at. And the Romans, they ate just about everything. I would like to say that during the Republic time, one of the things they mentioned on the blog is that because they had sumptuary laws about excessive feasting, one of the things that were outlawed during the times of the Roman Republic was, good for us Caidans, you can't eat dolphin. So, yeah, good for us. But at any rate, it's a really, really lovely blog. It's got some beautiful pictures. It's got some links to, as I said before, recipes, in addition to writings and sketches about food from that time. It's not a tremendously long blog. It's 10-minute read or so, but it's something to get your appetite whetted, no pun intended, if you really want to know a little bit more about Roman cooking. So I think that's an excellent one, and I'm really happy that we have the Getty here as another example again of just how best to appreciate that form of culinary endeavor. And those are those websites for the week. I do want to mention in closing that this upcoming Friday, I will be a guest on Between Two Peers with Mistress Tulia and Duchess Helga. I should remind folks that is not a PG show like ours, so you might want to make sure that younger folks are out of earshot. Other than that, that's been this week.
Wow. So I have a couple of notes. So, for what did ancient Romans eat? I actually saw Caligula, so I think they eat whatever they want, right?
Most likely, whether it was willing or not. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And then, for Eatonfeld's medieval baking show, I'm sure they have a category for most delicious use of sand. So
that's true. But the thing about that is it takes true grit to make that kind of thing.
Oh, very nice. I think there's a grain of truth in there. So who do we have up for our first guest this evening?
We have a dear friend of yours and mine, and someone that Caid has loved for many years, Dame Arabella de Sienna. She was many things to Caid before she moved on to another land, and she is currently the Society Equestrian Officer. And so we're very fortunate to have her with us today.
All righty, so let's bring her on. She'll be here right about now. Hello!
Hello! So happy to be in Caid again.
I know, even if it's virtual. So,
yes.
So where are you now?
I am in the barony of Cairgalen and the Outlands now.
So that's Boulder, right?
It's northwest of Denver, about an hour in Colorado.
Very cool. So you started out in the SCA in Outlands.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I started out in Cairgalen when it was a shire.
Oh,
has now grown up to be a not serious barony. So, the joys of Carrigalan. They never take themselves seriously. It's a lot of fun.
right. And so someone yelled at Outlands in the comments. So I think you were one of the first white scarves in Outland. Is that correct?
Yes, I was the 7th.
Oh my gosh.
And I was fortunate to actually be at the treaty signing and see the very first white scarf made. And yes, I was the 7th there, and then I went on to bigger and bigger things over at Caid. So it was nice to be able to see the white scarf spread and grow.
Right. And you kind of transitioned from rapier and more into the equestrian field over time. That pretty good description of it?
So yes, after 17 years on the rapier field, I retired in 2005 because horses are a full-time job. It's the equivalent to having 2 small newborns with you at an event all the time when you have a horse. It's very time-consuming. So since 2005, my main focus has been on equestrian.
So during these challenging times we've had this year, what's been going on from like the society level of the equestrian community? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, actually, we've been quite active. When the Gulf Wars was canceled, Lady Katya and Mistress Kumahera from the Mid-Realm started a Gulf Wasn't equestrian competition, and it's still ongoing. So there's about 4 or 5 competitions every month. People record themselves and then they submit it. And then the judges judge it by whatever criteria that they set up originally. It's been anywhere from standard SCA games to jousting training. Also, they have competitions for people who don't have a horse. So we've had the stick horse competitions, so everyone can be involved. So that's been really fantastic that's been going on. Also, there was a dance-off that Mistress Doe and actually you, Master Larities, helped edit the video for that. So we had a dance-off video from all the equestrians across the world. And the East Kingdom Equestrian Championship just last month was run virtually. And that was really great. The Golden Lancers sponsored that. They had the crown and they had a call it just like you would like a normal sports event. It was like Monday Night Football, but with equestrian. Acting as commentators. So that was a lot of fun. There's also a lot of non-SCA stuff going on. We're not the only people who do medieval horse stuff. We've had several clinics with Rostfechten, which is historical mounted combat, with Arne Coates from Germany. Again, virtually. Normally he flies out for that, but this year we had to do it virtually. And we also, a lot of people of us have joined the Academy Duello. So there's lots of stuff that's gone virtually, and we're able to share our activities with each other with recording it, and then also teaching and doing lessons via Zoom calls. So still a lot of stuff going on.
So prior to everything going virtual, the equestrian form, the martial form, y'all were kind of expanding beyond just the standard games and doing more like mounted combat and that kind of stuff. Can you speak about the kind of breadth of the forms that you do from horseback?
Sure. Yeah. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a real boom in the different activities we've done. We did start jousting about 10 years ago, and that was formalized as a standard SCA activity just a couple years ago. But we've also gone past that. We've added a program called Rostfechten, which is German for historical mounted combat, just like Harnessfechten is for historical armored ground fighting. So many of you know all that really cool historical stuff that Sir Guillaume is doing, based off the Fiore and Lichtenhauer manuals. Well, if you keep reading the manuals, the last couple chapters are all that on horseback. So that's what we're doing. We're doing Fiore, Lichtenhauer, the other historical sword masters of the time, but the stuff on horseback. And so there's a lot of overlap with both historical armored combat and cut and thrust. It's a lot of the same concepts, but the execution is different because your legs are now your horse and they can't go backwards. They can only go forwards and sideways and at angles, and they normally don't stop on a dime. So all those really cool moves where you would like dash in or dash out, you have to learn how to do that on a horse. So you're telling your horse to do one thing with their body and legs, and you're doing something different with your arms. So it can be the tempo is quite different. But that's one really fun thing that we're doing. We've also expanded, we have an experimental mounted ground program that is allowing the armored combat fighters on the ground to intermix with mounted combat fighters on horse. So we use specialized weapons for that. So we're not just using regular armored combat weapons. They're slightly modified to have a little bit more padding because of the horses. But it's really neat that we can have that cavalry versus ground fighter type activities going on. For just the games, we've also branched out. A lot of people are familiar with the games with, we have the tilting at the quintain, we have rings, we have pig sticking, we have javelin throwing, but we've also added buzkashi. It's a historical Afghan sport where you have two teams of about 10 horses, and the best description I can think of is rugby on horseback. And instead of a ball, you have in historical aspects, and actually even in modern day, they use a dead goat that's beheaded. We don't do that. We do actually have a stuffed goat that's about 2.5 feet tall, and that's what we use as our ball. As you have two teams of horses basically fighting over this fake animal to try and get it in goals at each end of the field. And we're also adding another Middle Eastern game called Jareed, which is riders running and you're throwing padded javelins at each other. And then also the equipment has really improved over the years. In the past, we had mounted combat where we used like the teens' boffer weapons for swords, but we've really changed to the more Behord style. So if you look in the Renee tournaments, you'll see the knights in their full armor doing mounted combat, but it looks like a club. And those were actually made out of whalebone or wood. And so we actually have hardened rubber that mimics those historical clubs called a Behord, and we use that in our mounted combat these days. So that's just a quick flavor of a lot of the really new, neat historical activities that we've been able to bring into the equestrian world.
So you mentioned a kind of modified rattan, right? What they used on armored combat. Are you also, but you also mentioned cut and thrust. So are y'all using metal blades too, or what's?
Yeah, so for the Ross Beckton program, so that's an experimental program run at the society level. That's based on the Fiore and Lichtenhauser manuals. We use two types of weapons. We use the Rawling swords, which are the hardened plastics, and we also use the cut and thrust sword. So all those swords that have been approved for cut and thrust, we can also use in that particular genre of activity.
Okay. And there was a question, you're talking about combat. What about mounted archery? Does that fall in the equestrian field too?
Oh yes, lots of mounted archery. As a matter of fact, I looked it up, and 2006, which is the furthest back that I have documentation on metrics of what we were doing, there were only 42 people doing mounted archery. And today we have almost 300 people doing mounted archery all across the SCA. It is actually by far and away the most popular secondary activity outside of the games that equestrians are pursuing.
Well, you know, kids love horses, and you need to practice mounted archery. You could just combine the two. Targets. It'd be perfect.
They're great for retrieving the arrows.
Sure, that's what I meant. Oh, and thank you for clarifying you don't use a real dead goat. I know His Majesty of Caid will feel very good about it because he's a huge goat fan. As a matter of fact, all viewers should just send, memes of goats to His Majesty. He would love that.
There we go.
I'm so much in trouble. So, how big is the equestrian community, would you say, from your perspective? Because you see the authorization number per kingdom, or do you kind of have like a broad number?
So yeah, it's about 1,000 authorized riders in all activities at any given time. I do have breakdowns for each of the activities. Like I said, mounted archery is by far and away the most popular secondary activity. You know, we have about 150 jousters and about another 150 people doing mounted combat. driving's really taken off. So people are driving more, not just with carts, but people have made chariots, historical chariots. And there's even a Celtic chariot out there, which is really fascinating. And so we have, about 60 or 70 drivers in the known world now. It's been a huge uptick in more inter-kingdom events. So 14 years ago, there were only 2 inter-kingdom events that had equestrian, and now we're up to 9. And they can get quite large. Gulf Wars every year usually sees between 60 and 75 horses at that particular event. And 50th year anniversary was the largest. We had 117 horses and 1 goat. There was a goat. We had over 150 riders from the 16 different kingdoms. We had over 34 competitions and classes. We even had performances with live musicians. And it was really great that wood jousting was featured in the opening ceremonies. And that actually had also the largest mounted procession. We had 6 riders for each of the 13 kingdoms. So we had 78 horses, actually more than that because we had some outriders, as with a really spectacular event as it wound its way through the entire site. So, also at 50th year, we had the largest ever carousel. That's where you have synchronized riding with music, where the horses and riders perform many different patterns and different stances. And we had over 50 people in that particular event. It was truly tremendous to have an opportunity to have that many SCA horses in one spot.
That's amazing. So I think at the next Great Western War, we should do Ben-Hur chariot racing. That would be awesome.
So chariot racing is actually still alive and well in the state of Nebraska. I don't know why Nebraska, but they're big into chariot racing.
I probably wouldn't have guessed that. So based on what you saw at 50th, then all the kingdoms, all the known world kingdoms, have some type of equestrian community that's active and kind of either stable or even growing a bit. Would you say that?
There's 2 kingdoms that don't. There's 17 kingdoms that have equestrian programs, and we have 2 kingdoms that are restarting their equestrian programs, Edenvelt and Artemisia. So it tends to go in waves. You tend to get people who all get horses all at the same time, and we'll all go through things for about 5 or 6 years, and then something happens, usually with the horses, and there's usually a dip, and then it comes back again. So it's very common to see in every kingdom, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of really high activity, followed by 2 or 3 years of a drought while people are retraining horses, raising new horses, and then it builds back up again.
Cool. Well, this is the point of the interview where I turn it over to Beorn to ask the much more insightful questions. So I'll step away for a moment, and here comes Beorn.
Thank you so very much for joining us today. And one of the things I wanted to ask about is, so equestrian is something that obviously requires an extreme expenditure, because a horse, a living creature that requires being stabled, being taken care of, being fed. And then, of course, when you have all of those things in mind, it used to be almost cost prohibitive way, way, way back because of the equestrian insurance certificate. But I understand that the equestrian practice certificate is actually quite reasonable. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. So for equestrian practices, you only need to get 1 insurance certificate. So it's $50 for the whole year of practices. So that's a fairly minimum cost for most shires and baronies. And for events, for each event, it's $50, but for practices, it's just $50 for the year. So it's really not that large of expense on the insurance side. The biggest costs are really borne.
As I understand
it, the biggest costs are borne by the riders, because it's not just a matter of like throwing your armor bag in the trunk and driving off to practice. You go to the stable, you have to load them up. You're spending anywhere between $25 and $75 in gas just to go to a practice. Not and events, and you have overnight lodging for the horses, plus all the food you're carrying. So whenever we go any place with the horses, it is a rather significant amount.
Well, one of the things that I liked was how the requirements for that practice certificate were actually really very reasonable. It's just make sure that you have it at a specific time It can't be more than 12 hours, although that, anything longer than that, it's really more of an event than a practice.
Right.
And that just make sure that it's got a same location. And I think that if it moves locations, having to submit for an additional certificate is completely reasonable. We've got to protect our riders, the society, the horses, and $50 for a calendar year seems to be extremely reasonable. The next question I had was about the wooden lances. Now, I understand that, so this is a fully armored format where you're wearing suitable target, you've got helmet, visor down, all of that kind of thing. And I was wondering if you could tell people that have only seen this in the movies, what is the safety position? So when you're on the horse, what is the safety position?
Hollywood has done us a great disservice. A lot of people think that jousting is people with this incredibly heavy armor constantly trying to bash each other off of the horse. For several hundred years, the jousting was pretty much called something the joust of la place, the joust of peace. It was more about targeting and horsemanship and skill. So you were trying to strike your opponent on their shield, I'll call the écranche, and break the lance. Not necessarily drive them off the horse, you're just trying to break the lance. And the other proper position is for safety is that you just don't lower your lance and then ride at each other. Because if you did that, you'd have the other one coming and your lances would cross. So it's really just a split second when you're lowering your lance and you have to lower it so they just miss each other. You hit each other on the shield, the écranche, you break the lance, and then you have to come back up again. All the while, like you mentioned, we're wearing full historical armor. We go back to the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries because they knew how to do it right. And so your eye slots are usually only about 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. And also when you're riding, it tends to move. So as you're riding down the lane at each other, you're only seeing your opponent every other step. And you only have that split second. It's less than I think 1/3 of a second, we calculated it, that you have that window to hit each other as you're going by at 25, 35 miles an hour. But the really neat thing about the wood jousting program is that it's run as a society level activity. So most of the time you get authorized at the kingdom by your kingdom marshals. The wood jousting program is run out of the society office. So Master Oila from Astura is in charge of the jousting program for the SCA. And so there's about 12 to 15 marshals across the SCA. And those are the people who do the authorization. So we keep a very tight control on training and authorization processes and the skills that are required to participate in this. And this model has been really great for the Marshallate office because it's pioneered a new way to tackle new and interesting historical elements, which might have a slightly higher risk that we would normally be comfortable with. But through the centralized process, it allows us to control the variables well enough that we're allowed to pursue these more interesting historical activities.
That sounds fantastic. Now, I was a writer. I never did English writing. I was always a Western writer on account of where I'm from. And so for us, it was basically walk, trot, canter, gallop. For what gaits are used when you are trying to demonstrate safe handling of both the horse, lance, and everything? Do you just let them show how they're doing at a full canter, or do they have to show what they're doing at a walk and then a trot and then a canter? How do they demonstrate to the marshalate that they are not going to injure themselves, their horse, or their opponent's animal or their opponent?
I should review the notes. There's an extremely detailed 3-page process on every step along the way. So first demonstrating your ability to ride and be able to handle a lance against a quintain, so not against another person, but against our spinning target, not in armor. And then you have to go and we add a step on the way that you have to prove you're competent So we add riding in armor, then we add riding in armor with the lance going against the quintain, and you have to be able to hit the quintain and a follow-up target, a certain amount of times and maintain all that control and maintain control of your horse and be able to interact with the ground crew. So there's about 15 steps that you have to go through before you actually go against another rider. So you have proven your ability to handle yourself and your horse in armor and the lance. And this can take anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 hours. And we also do it over a long period of time to get you tired. It's because you have to be able to prove your ability to safely handle the lance in armor at speed on your horse, even when you're tired. So it's a fairly intensive and extensive process. And we have a fabulous safety record here in the SCA, and in the international jousting community, we're getting a lot of attention. We're having a lot of our international jousters from other organizations come to our events because they're safe and the quality and skill levels there. And we just run a really fun event.
I have to confess, there's a reason why I had that final question, is because I had heard that other international jousters from other organizations were looking at what we were doing as recreational historical combat artists, and they were seeing how our riders were so safe, how our horses were so well taken care of, how the ground crews were so responsive, and they liked what we were doing, and they came to come and watch. And so I thought that was really neat that that the SCA is in some ways sort of leading by example in some organizations that have been around far longer than we have in dealing with equestrian activities. So I did that. I have to admit I did that so we could SCA brag just a little bit. I confess it now, but I'm glad you did. So thank you for that. I appreciate you answering my questions and letting you do the humble brag for the SCA because you did it so very well.
Well, thank you. So speaking of bragging, I did want to mention that, while I'm the SCO, it's, it takes a village. I do not do this job alone. My deputy, Mistress Doe, we talk continuously. We're constantly evaluating new rules, new interpretations, how to adapt things for different kingdoms. I have an amazing deputy Lancer, David, from Caid, actually, who runs the Rospectum program. And I mentioned already Master Oila down in the south running the jousting. I also have what I call my committee. So when I have a particularly hard question, I have a gang of about 6 former KEOs from all across the known world who help me work through thinking about all the different avenues, pros and cons every time we have a major policy or rule change. So my many thanks to the people who help me fulfill all the duties of this position.
All right. Well, seems like you got me back. So now's the time where we like to play a little game with our guests.
I'm gonna die. I'm terrible at this stuff.
Everyone looks so much forward to this every time. It's so amazing. So Beorn, what's the name of this week's game?
Tonight's is A Horse is a Horse, of course.
Right. So, since you have to deal with horses all the time, I thought it'd be great for you to, okay, I'm going to give you a choice. I'll either give you the name of the horse and you have to say what show or movie it's from, or I can do the opposite and give you the show or movie and you have to tell me the horse that's featured in it. Which would you prefer?
Give me the name of the horse.
Okay, give me the name of the horse. Okay, we'll start easy. Super easy. You have to name either the book or movie or show. Okay, so Flicka.
My friend Flicka.
See, there you go. See, I just want to make sure we don't do as bad as someone else did. Oh, okay, here's the second one. Black Beauty.
Yeah, that would be Black Beauty.
See, you're 2 for 2. You're all concerned about it. Okay. How about Bullseye?
Oh, Toy Story.
Yes. I'll give you that one. He actually started showing up in Toy Story 2, but we'll count that. Shadowfax.
Oh, that would be The Hobbit. Well, actually, the third movie in the Hobbit, second movie in the Hobbit series, that Gandalf wrote him. I almost had a chance to buy him. He was for sale in Southern California.
Really? You could buy
They flew him up from us. They flew him up from New Zealand. He was for sale, and it's so close. I could have owned Shadowfax.
That would have been awesome, by the way. Tornado. There's a little bit more.
All right, I'm missing that one.
Okay, that's Goro's horse, by the way. Argo.
I can tell you the color of the horse.
The series
Again,
was
it was a movie that was shot in New Zealand.
Yes, it was a spin-off. It was a spin-off of another show.
Xena?
Yes, it was Xena's horse.
Yeah, Xena. I knew it was in New Zealand. I knew the horse was from New Zealand.
Well, there you go. Okay, last one is Maximus.
Tangled.
Oh my God. You think you had daughters. Look at that. You only missed one. So
There we go.
and you were all nervous.
So that's like horse people. We will remember the name of everyone's horse. We don't know the name of the human. We'll just say, it's that horse's human. That's how we remember people. All horse people are like that.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming in, talking about the office and how the equestrian community has grown and continues to grow within the SCA, and especially using their time during this challenging months that we've had to continue to grow and share that knowledge. And hopefully you'll be able to get out there, because you were traveling a lot before, right? If I'm not mistaken, you were in transit to Gulf Wars when they canceled it with your horses, correct?
Yes, we actually stopped in Texas for the night, and then we ended up staying there for about 4 or 5 days and went horse shopping because we were in Texas.
Horse shopping. When people go window shopping, you go horse shopping. So anyway,
Yes.
thank you so much. I know you've been in the position for a long time, and
Yes.
it sounds like, and it's obvious that you've made a big difference working with everyone out there in the community to continue to grow and embrace more of the period aspect of it. So I'm sure everyone would like to thank you for everything that you do, including Nico, who's doing it right now. So I know it's a little bit later for you.
Well, thanks, everyone.
So thank you very much. And I
Okay.
guess we'll see you
Thank
around.
you.
All righty.
Yep.
Have a great
Bye,
night.
Caid.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh.
It's so
Yeah,
good to see her again.
I know. It was so weird when they moved away.
I know.
So sounds like they're flourishing over there in Outlands.
It does indeed. Well, land of her birth, coming back and taking that position. And although I definitely remember her as being a tiny but formidable person on the field, I think that she's doing a great thing for the society. And if the rapier field is poor, the equestrian field is that much richer. So.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's great to hear how the equestrian community continues to grow. And that's fantastic. So it's time for our bardic performance. I think our performer needs no introduction. Is that true?
Well, yes, unfortunately. So in bardic arts, primarily, there are several different disciplines, but the ones that are not considered kinetic, so like gesturing or dance, the three major facets are singing, poetry, and storytelling. They've heard me sing, they've heard me recite a poem, and so tonight I was going to tell a bit of a story, kind of a story lecture story thing. So that's what I'll be doing this evening.
Thank you for being so clear about it.
Clear as mud.
All righty. Well, the stage is yours.
Thank you all very much for spending your time with us. Greetings and hello there, fellow denizens of these realms ethereal. 'Tis I, Beorn of the Northern Sea, here to regale you with a tale of that most period of festivities, Thanksgiving. Now, scoff if you like, you little whippersnappers, For a while, a fair few history books inform us that the first generally accepted Feast of Thanksgiving happened just outside of Plymouth, Massachusetts in November of 1621. There were at least 3 earlier similar celebrations. We have 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, 1598 in what is now El Paso, Texas, and 1565 in St. Augustine, Florida. Plus, there are some less verifiable counts here and there. Now, in each of these cases, hardships were endured, and the Europeans and the indigenous people stopped for a moment to share bounty. As it is not the purpose of this particular story to go that deep into the rhyme or reason of these earliest Proto-American, Proto-Thanksgiving celebrations, I recommend you spend some time doing a bit of research and reading on these subjects yourself. After all, one can never know too much. But be prepared for more than a few, "that's not what they taught me in school" moments. So we have some just post-period dates there. And hey, some real live, honest to goodness, Renaissance-y type numbers there too. Problem solved. Well, no, not really. Because when you think about it, the 1621 celebration was a, "Yay, Squanto taught us how to plant maize and such, and we actually succeeded, thank the Lord" party. And thanking God or the gods for a successful harvest is such an ancient concept, to call it prehistoric would be a big-time understatement. Agrarian societies across the earth and throughout time, which until the Industrial Revolution was, carry the 2, all of them. Well, these societies had that love-hate relationship with the times of planting crops. They knew the cycles of the seasons, the feel of loamy or silty or sandy or peaty or spongy soil, and the scent of a biting frost on the wind, or that buzzing din of a locust swarm off in the distance, in a way that we modern humans have all but forgotten. But, lacking our modern pesticides, fertilizers, and farming equipment, they were truly at the mercy of forces beyond their control. And in a typically human fashion, they sought to appease and or thank the forces unknowable with sacrifices and feasts to those divine beings. Whether you were giving thanks to Ashnan or Osiris or Gevyun, Dagda or Heket or Demeter, it was as much a "thank you" as it was a "please don't." In truth, looking at the liturgical calendar, partnered up all cozy-like with all those fasting days and times of self-denial and discipline and restraint and reflection, were nearly as many feast days. I struggle to find much to distinguish a harvest festival with the local saint's feasting day. If the form differs a little bit, the function is virtually the same. Let's think about a period example. A good medieval harvest celebration. In the beginning of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by the Pearl poet, that Yule celebration in Camelot sure sounds like a feast of thanks. For the feast was illish full 15 days, with alle that meat and their mirth that men could avaise. All the meat and mirth? That sounds like quite a feast to me. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this isn't exclusively a European tradition. In Japan, the festival is on November 23rd, really close to ours, and is called Kinro Kansha no Hi, and it traces its origins back to their earliest harvest ceremonies, when Japan was a series of small feudal estates before it had even an emperor. And while the North American style of Thanksgiving is actually, believe it or not, relatively popular in mainland China today, the origins of their mid-autumn festival, called Ganenjie, they go back well over 3,000 years. A lot of rice harvests and time of the midsummer and making sure that the patties were moist enough and that they didn't have evil spirits, all of that sort of thing. Also, they celebrate a big dinner with the extended family, but that is the norm with most Chinese holidays. In Korea, Chuseok, which is celebrated on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month, which, depending upon how that goes, is either sometime in August or September, honors their ancestors and praises the great harvest while hoping for an even better yield next year. Even when they've got it good, they want to try a little bit better for the next time. It would seem that giving thanks for the bounty of the earth is indeed earthwide. Only hemispherical differences seem to really change when it is celebrated in the calendar. Seasonally, it remains the same. That ending of the growing season and the settling down for winter's more severe and sometimes deadly winter. And so, with the blending of feast days and harvest festivals and Yule, this time of year is like a 3-month-long hard work, hard play, risk reward coin where you hope it came up heads every year. And perhaps even that goddess Fortuna got a little offering here or there just to nudge her wheel a little bit in your favor. And I think that because of that, plus the other things we've chatted about, when people ask me, Beorn, what is your favorite holiday? I look them square in the eye and I say, All Hallow Thanksmas Eve plus. Since really this time of year for me starts sometime in October and goes into the middle of January. And really, this time of year, for most of us, breaks down into food, fellowship, family, and in keeping with the letter F, fire. From bonfires to Yule logs to marshmallows burnt to a cinder, and from trying not to set your hand on fire on Guy Fawkes Night to trying not to set your head on fire during Santa Lucia's Day, and professional chef here, okay? Listen very carefully to what I'm going to tell you. Please completely thaw out your turkeys before you try to deep fry them. There's a reason why boiling oil was used as a siege weapon. I'm just saying. Look it up on YouTube. It's not pretty. Anyway, that was a tangent. Sorry. So where were we? Oh, yeah. Time for thanks. So here we are. Nowadays, yes, sir, it's a time to celebrate. Finally, the end of this interminably long political... No. I mean, we can toast to the health of the... No. It's time for our family and friends to gather together. Crap. Honestly, tonight, what I'm most thankful for are these past 9 months of programs with all of you. Exactly 9 months ago, today, on March 23rd, we had our first Live from Caid broadcast. These shows have had some excellent interviews and performances from all across the known world, and I consider myself more than blessed to be here with you all when so many people are alone. I thank you all for your merriment and laughter, your queries, and of course, thanks to all those mutes, your drinking games. So please, be safe, stay healthy, and happy All Hallows Thanksmas Eve plus, everyone.
Very nice.
Thank you.
9 months. Who knew?
Exactly 9 months. Today's the 23rd. As I was looking at today and I saw that, I couldn't believe it.
That's crazy.
9 months we've been doing this.
I know. And people still watch. Who knew? So a couple of things from today. One, just reminding everyone, please send His Majesty goat memes because he loves them. And the second thing is we will not be having a show next Monday. It's the holidays. Not going to be working on it, so we're taking next Monday off. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, we will be sharing something I do on a separate channel about Wheel of Fortune. So if you ever want to know what it's like behind the scenes of Wheel of Fortune, check it out. That's what we're going to feature on Monday evening. But until then, everyone have a good Thanksgiving. Be thankful for what you have. Use the tools that you have to reach out to your friends and family. Check in on your friends who are alone right now, virtually. Make sure they're doing well. And
if I can go ahead and do gosh, I am so far away from millennial. Like, share, subscribe, both here and on the YouTube channel, so people get a chance to see some of these things. Not necessarily me. You guys see me enough. But some of the great people that we interview and some of the other performers, just get those names out there, get their concepts out there. And that way, more people will get a chance to see what the society does. So when we are able actually to meet each other face to face for realsies, honest to goodness, they'll have something that they remember from before, and then they'll be able to meet us in person.
Yeah. And if you're new to the show, check out our archives. All the old shows are on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. There's some amazing performances, some very interesting guests. We had Wela on here earlier, I think all the way back in July, talking about what it was like to be a professional jouster and how they do it in the SCA. So if you're looking for that information, please go check it out. But until that time, Beorn, thank you for joining us on this ride for this past 9 months. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Enjoy the family that you have around. And I'm jealous about the food you're going to make.
Take care of yourself and give my love to your family.
And to you and yours. And for everyone watching, have a great Thanksgiving. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back when once again, we will be live from Caid. We'll see you then.
Bye, everybody.